In the misty mountains of West Virginia, locals still speak in hushed tones of the Witch of the Appalachian Hollow, the woman who used inbreeding to keep her blood pure, a tale so disturbing its legend persists. Amid the isolated ridges and deep hollows of Appalachia in 1952, authorities would uncover a family legacy so twisted it forever changed our understanding of the true cost of isolation. The story starts when local mail carrier Elmer Dawson noticed, on October 12, 1952, that he hadn't seen the elderly Gertrude Harper collecting her monthly pension check, something she had done religiously for years. After 3 weeks of mail piling up, uncollected, Dawson decided to alert Sheriff Walter Connolly of Mason County. There was always something not quite right about that property, Sheriff Connolly would later recount in his official report. Like poison oak, locals avoided the Harper Hollow. Children were forbidden from venturing anywhere near it. 4 decades to come, what authorities discovered at the end of that winding dirt road would haunt them. In a clearing surrounded by ancient oak trees, their twisted branches seeming to guard the secrets within, stood the Harper homestead. Looming over several smaller outbuildings scattered across the overgrown property was the main house, a crumbling Victorian structure built in the 1870s. Noting the eerie silence, Sheriff Connolly and 2 deputies approached. No dogs were barking, no chickens clucking, just the whisper of wind through the trees. At Connolly's knock, the front door creaked open. Thick with decay, the air inside met them. They found 76-year-old Gertrude Harper dead in her rocking chair, a family Bible clutched in her gnarled hands. But it wasn't her death that shocked them, it was what they discovered in the outbuildings. In the first structure, they found 3 adults with distinct physical abnormalities, facial asymmetry, unusually small heads, and malformed limbs. When the officers entered, 2 men and 1 woman, all appearing to be in their 40s, cowered in corners. Beyond grunting sounds, none could speak. In another building were 2 younger adults who showed similar, though less severe, characteristics. They were like nothing I'd ever seen, wrote Deputy James Hollis. Human, but somehow different. Like a photograph that's been damaged and put back together incorrectly, their features were all wrong. Most disturbing of all were the family ledgers discovered in Gertrude's bedroom. Dating back to 1842, they contained detailed records of family unions, births, and deaths, revealing a deliberate pattern of familial unions spanning 5 generations. It seemed Gertrude Harper was the architect of a chilling experiment in human genetics. Born in 1876 to one of the area's most prominent families, she had received an unusual education for a woman of her time, including extensive study of animal husbandry and the emerging science of genetics. A disturbing obsession with blood purity and preventing the family's special qualities from being diluted by outsiders was revealed in her personal journals. When researchers from Charleston University later examined the Harper family tree, they discovered that since 1842, not a single marriage had occurred outside the immediate family. Brothers wed sisters, cousins wed cousins, and in several cases, parents wed their own adult children. With each generation, the result was a family line that grew increasingly compromised. What makes this case so unique, noted Dr. Harold Whitman of Charleston University in his 1954 study, is the deliberate, calculated nature of the consanguinity. Most cases we've studied involve geographical isolation or cultural practices. But evidence of purposeful direction is shown in the Harper case, an experiment, if you will, conducted by Gertrude herself. Before you continue watching this disturbing tale, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. These are stories most historians try to bury, but we believe understanding our darkest chapters is essential to preventing their recurrence. Hit subscribe now to ensure you never miss these hidden truths of American history. The roots of Gertrude Harper's fixation with blood purity can be traced back to her grandfather, Thaddeus Harper. A wealthy landowner with mysterious origins, he arrived in West Virginia in 1839. Thaddeus purchased over 500 acres of remote Appalachian woodland and established the Harper estate. Historical records show he brought with him substantial wealth, which was unusual for settlers in the region at that time. Preserved in the Charleston Historical Society archives, Thaddeus Harper's journals reveal a man consumed by unusual beliefs about heredity. "Our bloodline carries gifts others cannot comprehend," he wrote in 1841. "Dilution means destruction. We must preserve what flows in our veins at all costs. These writings suggest Thaddeus may have fled his previous home in Massachusetts following accusations of practicing unorthodox medicine. Throughout his personal writings appear references to ancient knowledge and preserving the old ways. Most telling was his extensive collection of medical texts, unusual for someone without formal medical training, including early works on heredity and bloodlines. By 1842, Thaddeus had established the pattern that would define the Harper lineage for over a century. His 2 children, both by his first wife, who died under mysterious circumstances, were wed to each other when they reached adulthood. This union produced 4 children, including Gertrude's father, Elias Harper. Elias continued his father's practices but added a veneer of scientific inquiry. Having studied briefly at a medical college in Philadelphia before being dismissed for concerning theories, he returned to the Harper Hollow in 1870 and began documenting the family's physical and mental characteristics in detailed ledgers. When Gertrude was born in 1876, Elias took special interest in her education. Unlike her siblings, who displayed increasingly pronounced physical abnormalities, Gertrude appeared outwardly normal. Her intelligence, however, was remarkable. By age 10, she could recite complex passages from her father's medical texts and assist with his examinations of family members. "The girl understands our purpose," Elias wrote in 1887. "She alone, among the children, comprehends the importance of our work. She will be the one to carry forward our legacy when I am gone." Archival photographs from 1895 show a stern-faced Gertrude at age 19 standing beside her father. While Elias shows subtle signs of the family's genetic burden, asymmetrical features and an unusually shaped skull, Gertrude appears striking in her normality, though her eyes hold an intensity that unsettled even the photographer, who noted it in his records. When Elias died in 1901, Gertrude assumed control of the family estate and its inhabitants. Her brothers and sisters, many severely affected by generations of consanguinity, lived in the outbuildings under her strict supervision. County records show that between 1901 and 1952, Gertrude only left the property to collect necessary supplies and, later, her pension checks. During this period, multiple children were born on the property, though none were ever registered with county authorities. Local midwife Esther Miller, who assisted with several births at the Harper property between 1912 and 1930, later told investigators she was always blindfolded before being led to the birthing room and was forbidden from seeing the infants after delivery. "She paid me triple the usual fee," Miller recalled. "But she made me swear on a Bible never to speak of what I heard in that house. The sounds that came from some of those rooms, they weren't natural. They weren't human sounds." The isolation of the Harper Hollow, combined with local superstition and fear, allowed Gertrude's practices to continue unchecked for decades. The family became the source of local legends, with parents warning children to stay away from the Witch's Hollow, and instances of missing livestock blamed on Harper family raids. What few outsiders realized was that inside the seemingly decrepit estate, Gertrude was methodically recording the results of her family's ongoing genetic experiment, documenting physical abnormalities, intellectual capacities, and survival rates with clinical precision. By the time authorities discovered the Harper family compound in 1952, the consequences of generations of consanguinity were devastatingly apparent. The 5 surviving family members found on the property, later identified as Gertrude's nieces, nephews, and great-nephews, displayed a range of physical and developmental conditions that shocked even experienced medical professionals. Dr. Samuel Blackwell, who examined the Harper family members at Mason County Hospital, documented his findings in a report that remained classified until 1979. "In my 30 years of medical practice, I have never encountered such a concentration of congenital abnormalities in a single family," he wrote. "The combination of microcephaly, facial asymmetry, spinal deformities, and intellectual impairment presents a textbook case of genetic decline due to excessive consanguineous reproduction." The eldest survivors, twin brothers Edwin and Edgar Harper, aged 43, could neither speak nor care for themselves independently. Their sister Millicent Harper, aged 41, possessed limited speech capabilities but displayed extreme photosensitivity and could not tolerate sunlight. The youngest survivors, Jeremiah, 26, and Ruth Harper, 24, showed less severe physical abnormalities but significant developmental delays. If you're feeling disturbed by this account of genetic isolation, type family trees should branch in the comments below. Your words acknowledge the victims of these terrible practices and help us remember that diversity strengthens while isolation destroys. Most revealing was the discovery of Gertrude's research room, a surprisingly well-maintained space within the otherwise deteriorating main house. Here, investigators found meticulously organized records dating back to 1842, documenting each family union, pregnancy, birth, and death. With clinical detachment, physical characteristics were noted, along with crude measurements of skull circumference, limb proportions, and developmental milestones. Gertrude's notes from 1947 reveal her awareness of the consequences of her family's practices. Generation 5 specimens show increasing unviability. Of the 12 pregnancies since 1930, only 5 resulted in surviving offspring, all with pronounced physical manifestations. The purification process creates inevitable weakness in the short term. But the final goal remains achievable. What exactly this final goal entailed remains unclear, though anthropologist Dr. Eleanor Simmons, who studied the Harper case extensively in the 1960s, proposed a disturbing theory based on Gertrude's writings. Gertrude Harper appears to have believed that her family carried a special genetic trait that could only be preserved through intensive inbreeding, Simmons wrote in her controversial 1967 paper. She saw the physical and mental abnormalities not as negative consequences, but as necessary sacrifices in a multi-generational process of distillation. Most disturbing is her apparent belief that after sufficient purification, the family would produce what she termed the perfect vessel, a being of extraordinary abilities. This quasi-religious element to Gertrude's genetic experimentation aligns with local folklore surrounding the Harper family. Throughout the early 20th century, Appalachian oral histories referenced the Witch of the Hollow who was creating unnatural children to serve some dark purpose. After their discovery, the surviving Harper family members were transferred to Sweetbriar State Hospital, where they remained until its closure in 1975. Hospital records indicate that despite years of rehabilitation efforts, none ever developed the ability to live independently. Millicent died in 1961, the twins in 1964, and Jeremiah in 1970. Only Ruth Harper survived the institution's closure and was transferred to a group home where she lived until her death in 1991. Perhaps most chilling were the graves discovered on the Harper property. Behind the main house, investigators found a small family cemetery containing 37 marked graves, many bearing only initials and dates. Forensic examination of remains exhumed in 1953 confirmed the progressive worsening of genetic abnormalities across generations, with the most recent burials showing the most severe manifestations. In a stone-lined chamber beneath the cemetery, investigators discovered something that never appeared in official reports but was rumored among the officers present: 9 infant remains preserved in glass containers, labeled with dates and detailed anatomical notes. Dating from 1906 to 1949, these specimens apparently represented what Gertrude considered failed iterations in her disturbing experiment. The Harper case sent shockwaves through the scientific community of the 1950s, arriving at a pivotal moment in the understanding of human genetics. Just a year, the case also sparked renewed interest in other isolated Appalachian communities. Researchers identified several additional family groups with elevated rates of genetic disorders linked to consanguinity, though none approached the extremes of the Harper family. These studies contributed significantly to understanding the genetic health implications of isolation and led to improved outreach programs throughout the region. Perhaps the most lasting scientific impact came from the preserved tissue samples taken from the Harper family members during their hospital stays. With family consent impossible to obtain, these samples were maintained in medical archives and decades later became some of the earliest human samples subjected to advanced genetic testing techniques developed in the 1980s and 1990s. A 1997 study conducted with strict ethical oversight used these preserved samples to identify specific genetic mutations present in the Harper lineage. This research contributed to the identification of several genes responsible for developmental disorders and provided valuable insights into how recessive genetic conditions manifest when inheritance patterns are compromised. The ethical questions surrounding the use of the Harper samples continue to provoke debate in medical circles. As recently as 2018, bioethicist Dr. James Forrester referenced the Harper case in discussions of informed consent in historical medical samples. The Harper family's tragic story reminds us that behind every medical sample is a human life, Forrester noted. While their unwilling contribution to genetic science has yielded valuable knowledge, we must never forget the profound suffering that preceded this knowledge. Today, the Harper Hollow lies empty, reclaimed by the Appalachian forest. After the 1952 discovery, local authorities burned the outbuildings and sealed the main house. In 1963, a mysterious fire destroyed what remained of the Harper mansion, though the stone foundation can still be seen by those few who know where to look. The land itself, all 500 acres, remained in legal limbo for decades. With no legitimate heirs and a complex web of questions surrounding Gertrude's will, which attempted to establish a trust for future Harper generations, the property reverted to state ownership in 1975. In 1982, it was incorporated into the Monongahela National Forest, its dark history intentionally obscured from official records. Yet, the Harper legacy continues to cast long shadows across multiple dimensions of American society. In local culture, the story has evolved into a distinct form of Appalachian folklore. While officials attempted to suppress details of the case, oral traditions preserve the cautionary tale. Generations of West Virginia children have grown up hearing warnings about Harper's Hollow and the witch who made monsters from her own blood. Folklorist Dr. Rebecca Martinez documented these evolving traditions in her 2005 collection, Appalachian Darkness, Modern Myths of the Mountains Star. The Harper story represents a fascinating blend of historical fact and supernatural elaboration, Martinez wrote. Over time, Gertrude has been transformed from a disturbed eugenicist into an archetypal witch figure with supernatural powers. While the real tragedy of her victims is preserved in the emotional core of the stories, in some versions, Gertrude gained unholy powers from intimate relations with her brother. In others, she struck a deal with the devil to create a new race of servants. The consistent elements across all variations are the themes of isolation, purity, obsession, and the devastating consequences of inner family relations. Beyond folklore, the Harper case has influenced American popular culture in subtle but persistent ways. Literary scholars have identified the Harper story as likely inspiration for several works of Southern Gothic fiction, including Eudora Welty's June Recital, 1955, and aspects of William Faulkner's later works. More recently, the 2012 independent film Hollow Creek drew heavily from the Harper case, though it added supernatural elements absent from the historical record. The 2017 season of the popular podcast American Shadows dedicated 3 episodes to exploring the Harper story and its implications for understanding America's complicated relationship with eugenics and genetic manipulation. Perhaps most significantly, the Harper case continues to inform medical ethics and genetic counseling. The case study appears in numerous medical textbooks as a stark illustration of consanguinity risks, and genetic counselors often reference aspects of the Harper family without naming them when explaining recessive inheritance patterns to patients. Dr. Helen Chun, director of the Center for Genetic Counseling Ethics at UCLA, explained in a 2019 interview, "While we've moved far beyond the crude understanding of genetics that motivated Gertrude Harper's horrific experiment, the basic principle she ignored remains central to genetic counseling today: genetic diversity strengthens us." The Harper case serves as the ultimate cautionary tale about the dangers of genetic isolation. For the few remaining elderly residents who remember the original discovery, the Harper case represents something more personal: a community's failure to intervene. Elmer Dawson, the mail carrier who alerted authorities in 1952, gave his only interview to the Charleston Gazette in 1982, shortly before his death. "Everyone knew something wasn't right in that hollow," Dawson recalled. "We all heard the strange sounds at night. Saw the odd shapes moving behind the curtains when you drove past. But we minded our business, told ourselves it wasn't our place to ask questions. There's not a day goes by I don't wonder if we could have saved some of those poor souls if we'd spoken up sooner." If you've made it to the end of this dark journey into Appalachia's hidden history, Please leave a comment saying I watched until the end so I can get to know who truly appreciates these forgotten stories from America's shadows. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel for more untold historical accounts that challenge our understanding of human nature. Like this video if you found it educational and share it with anyone interested in the intersection of history, genetics, and human behavior. Your support helps us continue uncovering these crucial yet overlooked chapters of American history. The Harper case ultimately stands as a testament to the dangers of isolation, both genetic and social. In the remote hollows of Appalachia, hidden from public view and oversight, one family's descent into genetic catastrophe unfolded over generations. Their story, disturbing as it is, serves as a powerful reminder of our shared humanity and the fundamental biological truth that connection, not isolation, is the foundation of human thriving.